back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys, so I'm here today to review two books that I really enjoyed reading, and I think you guys will really enjoy too, especially if you're into fantasy. The first one is a book called Sasha, which is written by Joel Shepherd and is the first one in a series called Trial of Blood and Steel. And the second one is the third and final book in a trilogy called The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin. So I'm going to start off with the Sasha book. And this book is one I actually read way back in June, but I realised I never reviewed it for you guys, and seeing as I loved it, I definitely wanted to review it for you. So let's go into what this is all about. I picked this one up on Audible because I was recommended it there and it sounded quite fun, and I just went diving into it. And it was definitely a great impulse decision on my behalf because I really enjoyed the story. It follows a young woman called Sasha, who is actually a princess of the world that we're focusing on, although she has kind of declined her title in favour of going and studying to become a warrior. I would definitely class this as a kind of fantasy, epic fantasy crossover, because it is quite a long read. It does have some very political moments. One really big plus in this one's favour is that it has really good female characters compared to a lot of the sort of traditional epic fantasy stories that are out there. What I do really love about this book is that although we do focus a bit on some of the classic fantasy tropes, so we've got like two rivals, religions and forces facing off against one another, we've also got a looming war and a chosen one, an heir who's killed off, and a pretty useless king, which does seem to be a big theme in fantasy. We also have an amazing female lead character called Sasha, who really does a lot to subvert all of those other tropes that I've seen in other fantasy books where women are weak or women are the people who have to be rescued. Like, no. Sasha is the one who is very much in control of her destiny in this book, and she is promoting ladies taking more of a leading role. She's a great character, is basically what I'm saying, and I loved that about this book. So, like I mentioned before, Sasha is actually part of the royal line, and yet she has given up her title of princess to become a warrior. She has many other siblings, so it's not like they can't take the throne. She's got quite a lot of brothers and sisters. She doesn't really get on with her father anyway, so it doesn't really bother him that she has left. Instead of being raised by her father, she's mostly raised by her teacher, and not only is Kesley a really kind of great role model in her life, he's been a great influence on her, he's also a very badass fighter, which is obviously why he's taken her under his wing and started training her, and he has a lot of faith in her as an apprentice. He thinks that she has the potential to do things that other apprentices might not be able to do because she's female, and also because she's just a really innovative thinker. She thinks outside the box. Kesley comes from the Goronyai people, and he has trained Sasha in their different ways and their practices. Sasha also upholds her own Lenayan Verathane heritage, which is the heritage of the kingdom, and she really longs for a day where the Goronyai and the Lenayan will actually come together and be able to coexist, because currently there are definite tensions and fractures between the two people, and she knows that some people are okay with this and some people are really against them kind of coming together, but she wants a day where these two heritages that she claims can be coexisting. The Goronyai people worship swordplay and honour, and they believe that Sasha is a great person called the Cynic who has come together to unite them. They also, however, believe that the Verathane rulers are outdated and they need to kind of change the way that they do things. And once a threat is posed to a neighbouring kingdom, which is called the Udalin people, the symbol of Goronyai pride will not let them not interfere. So Sasha has to step into the role that she has kind of been in training for and basically go to help these people of the Udalin to find out what's gone on, who should really be in control of the situation, and why this whole massacre and horrible thing that happened there actually was able to occur. What I really liked about this book was the characters and the world, but mainly the characters. I feel like it was a fairly standard world, but the characters and the division of the world and the division of how people worshipped and what they worshipped and what they admired and they valued was really interesting. It became a much more intriguing and an elevated kind of story because of the intrigue built up by these different factions and religions and peoples, but mainly also because of Sasha and Sophie, who is her younger sister. And they were my favourite characters by far, as each of them kind of represented something very different about women and something very different about the people and the roles that people have in this world. They kind of both did their own thing to defy the stereotypes, to defy the tropes, and they both were able to break out of the mould that society had cast them in and shine a light on their different abilities, things maybe people didn't expect them to have, or things that they were able to discover about themselves when they were put into tough situations. I really liked the fact that the characters were centre stage in this, and Sasha in particular was such a great role model for her younger sister, but also for the people of this world, the people who maybe were doubters, the people who didn't think things could be broken or fixed. And she even goes against her own family at times in necessary situations to try and prove that things can change, things can be better. And I really, really liked that about her. Both of them, Sophie and Sasha, were very, very different characters, and they're both vulnerable in their own way during wartime. They're not just hard-edged people, they actually have vulnerabilities, and they kind of dwell on those at times, which made them a lot more human, and I like that. I really feel like both of them kind of overcame a lot of different difficulties and things that were put in their way, and that made the whole story a lot more dynamic as a whole. It does definitely have political undertones, but for me this was a character-driven story, and that's what I loved about it. So I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely recommend it. I am hoping to get to the second one very soon, because it is a series, and I will definitely report back on that one too when I read it, because yeah, this was a really, really strong beginning to a series, and one that I certainly want to continue on with. The other one I want to talk about is The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin, which is the third and final one in the trilogy, so it wraps everything up. This is the series that started with the 5th season, and then the second one is called The Obelisk Gate. I have reviewed both of those, so I'll put links to those reviews. But this one is the climax of it all. It's coming together and bringing everything that's been set up in the first 2 books to an end, whatever that end may be. And it is very, very climactic. It does feel like an epic series ender, which is great. Both shocking and exciting, emotional, well considered. It kind of has a little bit of everything, which is really, really nice to see. And I do find that sometimes series enders don't feel like they're pulling off the epicness that you're set up for, and I do think this one did that. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what she brings out next, if this series is anything to go by. So this book follows the stories of Nassun and Essun once again. It also has some other characters like Hoa and the Stone Eaters and some sort of past societies. We get flashbacks into the past, we get present day, we also get different people in different parts of the world. So this whole story feels a lot more expansive than the other 2 books, I think. It does explore larger parts of the world, different types of characters, different types of people. Characters who've been through an awful lot by this point are really pushed to their limits in this book. One of the major themes in this story is that of whether or not to break the world and motherhood. Those 2 themes kind of coexist, because motherhood is something that we focus on a lot. We're focusing on a mother and a daughter in this book, and we're focusing on their relationship and how broken it is and whether it can be fixed. We're also focusing on the individual people themselves and whether or not they have the ability to fix a world that was broken many, many years ago. It is called the Broken Earth series, and there are lots of reasons why it is a broken Earth and lots of reasons that went into breaking it and hopefully unbreaking it again, although that's very questionable at the start of this book, whether or not that will happen and how it will happen. The people that we're following have different motivations. One of them is motivated by love and fear, and the other one is motivated by sadness and worry, and also by love in a different way. They kind of have motivations that make them do things that they maybe wouldn't normally do, or that they don't want to do, in order to save or hurt humanity. N.K. Jemisin actually spoke about in the acknowledgements of this book the fact that she was going through some really personal, hurtful things in her own life. At the time that she was writing this, her mother actually passed away, and you can see in this book that the hurt and the pain is in it. It is definitely an emotional read. It's heavy because it talks about humanity as a whole being saved by just 1 or 2 people. Is that possible? Is that a burden that these people should have to bear? Can they bear it? And also they've got their own problems of relationships and troubles and trying to figure out what they're going to do with one another or without one another, and it's very, very hard-hitting in places, and there's some really poignant passages in this that I think relate to modern day very, very well. To be honest, there's not an awful lot more that I can say about this without spoiling it, because it is book 3, but this is focused on a world where environmental change and environmental stability is hugely challenged. There are a lot of earthquakes and volcano eruptions, and just the whole climate of this world is absolutely in uproar, which causes a lot of environmental disasters. So that's definitely a major part of it. We also have different magic called originy, which is kind of drawing on earth powers and being able to manipulate things in various ways. In book 2 we have the obelisk gate, which is a magical thing in itself, and there's lots of different types of people and magic in the world, including, as I said before, stone eaters who have their own abilities and guardians who've got theirs. It's quite a different, very diverse, very varied world, and I really, really enjoy it for that reason, so I definitely would recommend this series. And I ended up giving the final one 4 out of 5 stars. It's a really, really good ending, and as a whole this series is very, very solid, so one I would definitely recommend you try, and let me know your thoughts if you do. So that is my review for Sasha and for The Stone Sky. Let me know down below what you think of both, or if you'll be picking either of them up soon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.